So once again, I'm joined by my buddy Paul. Say hi, Paul.
Hey, hey, internet people.
Internet peoples.
Peoples.
The peoples of the internets.
Those of you who sit in front of your screens.
And we're here to review Chronicle. And goddamn, I love this movie.
It was garbage. Absolute garbage.
F you.
Guys. No, that movie, it was phenomenal.
No, dude, I loved the hell out of this movie, man.
It's funny, you know, when I first saw the preview, I'm sitting at work, and I'm looking at the TV, and there's noise, and I just think it's a car commercial. And then finally I see somebody move something, and I was like, wait, everybody stop talking. And I'm new in my store, so everybody looks at me like I'm crazy. I'm like, superpowers. Heads-up display. What is this? And before the trailer was even done, I texted Mike, and I'm like, you need to look up this trailer right here. And he's like, dude, I already saw it, and you were the first thing I thought of. I was like, I'm doing the review.
I know. You know, and that's one thing I caught on about 3/4 of the way through the movie. I don't know if you noticed this. Not once in the movie did they say the word superhero.
Right. They also didn't say power.
Superpower, superhero. They never say that. And that's really clever on the screenwriters and director's part. I really like that they did that. It starts off with this boy, Andrew, who's just a poor sack of shit, I'm sorry to say. I mean, he's getting picked on at school. His dad beats him. I mean, he's got a pretty pathetic life.
And the only person he's got in his life is his cousin.
Yeah, and his cousin isn't even really that good of a friend. His cousin is basically just there because he's obligated to pick him up for school. But one point, his cousin invites him to a party, and he says, please don't bring your camera with you. It'd be awkward. But he does it anyway.
Well, I mean, in the synopsis, you need to mention, I mean, the camera was there because he wanted to record just how terrible his life was.
Yes. That's the first reason he uses the camera, because he sets it up because his dad was going to come in and beat him. And he says, I'm recording this, and the dad walks away. So he goes to this party, meets, what was the guy's name, Steve?
Yeah, Steve.
And I said, dude, you got to come look at this hole over here. They're like, what are you talking about, a hole? They go in there, and there's this loud, humming, vibrating noise. They get in there, and I want to say this, because it's not going to ruin anything, but I just want to say this. When you saw what they were looking at, did you not think Superman pod that he landed in?
I was thinking giant crystal heart.
Yeah.
Personally.
And again, guys, that's not a spoiler if some of you complain about that. I mean, we're not going to ruin the ending of the film, but that's what they come across. So the camera goes to black, and it cuts to 3 weeks later, and we find that these kids have fully experiment with their powers that they've discovered they have. They're throwing baseballs around, they're picking up leaf blowers and blowing them up girls' skirts. Pretty harmless stuff.
Yeah, you know, moving toys in stores, you know, cars.
Mm-hmm. And that sequence I loved. I mean, you always get a sequence like that when people first discover their powers. They go out and experiment with them. But I loved how these kids did it. They're genuinely having fun with it. And it's a different take on what they're doing.
Well, it's just, like you said, like they didn't mention the word superhero once, and it wasn't a superhero movie.
Yeah.
I mean, there wasn't even a fight scene until
the absolute very end.
The absolute very end. And even at that point, it really wasn't hero versus villain. It just was what it was.
Yeah.
So, I mean, throughout the movie, looking up definitions and joking around about the word vibrate, and then moving leaf blowers and lifting cars and stuff like that, it really just was, like, look what we can do. And even at one point, somebody says, have you thought about doing more with this? And he says, like what?
Like maybe flying. You know?
I mean, they're skipping rocks, and he's like, well, what else would we do with it?
And they start to discover they can, fly, and they can, hurdle great distances, and it's fun watching them experiment with their powers. It really is.
Now, see, that was the scene that I was nervous about.
Them
the
flying
scene.
Why did you say that?
I saw it in the trailer, and I was like, oh, this is going to look way too CGI, and they did a really good job.
They really did.
They really did. There was only one scene in the entire movie that I was disappointed in, and it was in one scene you see Matt fly out of Andrew's window. The graphics around Matt are just really poor. I looked at it, and I looked at my friend, and I said, it's the only thing so far I haven't liked. But really, the movie itself was just one thing after another that just impressed me.
Yeah, and I gotta say, as much of an asshole he became, I felt a lot of sympathy for Andrew.
Oh yeah, he had a very Darth Vader thing going on.
He did. And I've spoken to a couple people who had a problem with how dark he turned towards the end, but I didn't, because, and I'm gonna make a really bad comparison here, but just go with me for a second. He had what I like to call the Columbine syndrome, where essentially you've got a kid who is picked on by just a few and has had a somewhat bad upbringing, and he turns around and you can't console him no matter who it is. Even his closest friends can't console him to going completely dark.
Well, and I mean, part of that really was just, one of the things that happens that he does by mistake that really hits home to him. that really just starts twisting him.
Yeah.
You'll see that in a lot of stories, that when that happens to a hero or somebody at all, that when that happens, they think that that's who they have to be then. And then as he got stronger and he started studying philosophy more.
Mm-hmm. I like that there was a lot of philosophical references in the movie. I liked that. And at one point, I forget the girl's name, even calls him out on it. But
Well, she calls Matt out on it.
yeah. And I like that because you're basically saying, oh, you're trying to be too freaking philosophical. But I like those philosophical references. Like how Andrew's trying to justify what he's doing. That is really creative, and I like that they went that route. He says at one point when he's sitting there in it's like a junkyard, and he's saying, do you feel guilty when a lion kills a gazelle? No, because it's in the lion's nature. No one should feel guilty for being powerful. No one should feel guilty for being who they are. And it's at that point you realize, okay, this kid's going to start going over the edge at any point. But at the same time, you say, well, he's not wrong. I mean, he's just being who he's supposed to be, as twisted as that is. And if he had some better friends, a better upbringing, he might go towards the other side of that, where he's going the route of Matt, where he's saying, okay, we're going to try and help people with these powers. Instead, Andrew, because of his terrible upbringing, is turning around and saying, no, everybody.
With the abuse from his alcoholic father, and really just sitting by powerless, his mother is sick.
Yeah.
It's just, he finally has power, and it's that absolute 180 where he went from being nothing to being everything, and it went into his head.
And to that effect, this is what set this movie above some of the other movies I've compared it to in the past. Like, when I first mentioned in my What We're Threading, What We're Dreading, I said that Chronicle had the potential to be terrible, like it could be Jumper or Push or I Am Number 4, which I hate those movies, because they're just putting young heartthrobs into a movie with superpowers. That's all it is. There's no story, there's no premise, it's just we're going to give young, cute people superpowers. And that's crap. This movie had a reason for giving them their powers. And not only that, but they made it philosophical. That is what you need to do with these type of movies, and that's why I liked it.
I love that not everybody was as good as him.
Yeah.
Like when Steve makes a point at one point to say, I tried to type my name the other day and I snapped my keyboard. And Andrew says, well, you just have to feel like you're holding it and pretend like you're holding it, and you have to be gentle about it. Really showing, there was the Lego scene where Matt can't put two Legos together, and Andrew's picking them up and stacking them into the Sears Tower.
No, it was the CN Tower in Seattle. Yeah.
Whatever.
Yeah.
Some tower.
No, but those are cool scenes, and I liked where Steve went with it, where he said, he was using it in the bedroom. I thought that was really cool, because that would be like the first place I would go, where I would like turn around and Kim would be like, "What the fuck just happened?"
She's gonna love hearing that in the review.
She's gonna kill me.
But yeah, I mean, all the different aspects that they did, it wasn't, the government picked us up and trained us to be soldiers. It was, we're in high school, and we don't know what to do, and, using it for popularity, and the redhead clown-looking girl who was like, oh my god, magic's so hot, after they did that one thing, and it was just, the way they did it was impressive.
There are no A-list actors in here. It's pretty much just all young kids or like grad students who are in this movie. For what they had, this is close to a masterpiece for me. I mean, for what they had. Now, again, it's not flawless. You mentioned a couple problems with the CG, and there is going to be that when you have such a low budget. But as far as the performances go, as far as the screenplay goes, as far as the direction, as far as the cinematography, this is close to a perfect movie that you can get around this time of year. And the one thing I was going to say before I give my final rating, we were talking about how Andrew views himself as like a higher being now, as like being above the human race. And towards the end of the movie, he actually gives himself a villain name without even knowing it. Did you notice that? He's sitting there and he says, I am an apex predator.
Oh, yeah.
So you could call him Apex or you could call him Predator. And it's like, that was f***ing genius by the part of the screenwriter. Because you could just sit there and say,
that, yeah.
If he lived, you could have called him Apex. And that would have been f***ing brilliant on the part of the screenwriters. If they actually continued on and had him become like a full-fledged villain, that would have been bad. He's just sitting there just thinking about himself, about what he is, and he says, I am an apex predator. And
the one thing that I love about these style movies is that, for the most part, it's something fantastic, and you don't have to worry about there being a sequel.
Yeah. So I'm going to go ahead and give my final rating. We'll start with you, Paul.
How do you rate? Is it 1 to 5?
0 to 5.
0 to 5? Oh, well, in that case, we're gonna go with like negative. Nah,
Aw.
easy 5.
A 5,
Easy
really?
5, yeah.
This is a perfect rating for you.
Yeah, like
Wow.
I said, like if the only thing I have an issue with is that one scene looked a little too CGI. I mean, really, where I focus is story. From a story standpoint, and with that one CGI flaw that I had pointed out, easy 5.
Easy 5. All right, well, good. I mean, I reserve 5s for only the highest grade of movies, and this is pretty close to that. You know, for a movie that comes out in February, and I always talk about movies that come out at particular times of year, this is like chick flick time of year. It really is. Right around Valentine's Day, you get stuff like The Vow, and, you know, This Means War, and, you know, movies in the past that are just overall chick flicks that guys hate going into. And to have this come out this time of year is genius on the part of the studio, because people are just going to flock to see this movie. And I really hope it does well, because I want this movie to do well. I want to see more movies that are like this. I want them to be rewarded for writing a good script and having good dialogue and making a phenomenal movie. So, that being said, I'm going to give it 4.5. I mean, I thought it was very, very good. I wish I could give it a 5. I really want to give it a 5, but I've only given a couple movies in my lifetime a 5. Again, I'm not saying the movie's terrible. I really love this movie. I can't really cite why I wouldn't give it 5 stars, because it was very good. But you have to remember, the only movies I've given 5 stars are like, Dark Knight and... Dark Knight.
Alright.
No, I've given something else 5 stars. I forget what it was. I think maybe Cloverfield. I think I gave Cloverfield 5 stars. A couple others out there. District 9. I think I gave District 9 5 stars.
I mean, I'll say that I'm glad it didn't come out over the summer, because as it stands, I'm going to be busy over the summer doing reviews for Spider-Man and the Avengers and Batman.
Dark Knight Rises, yeah.
Phew.
You know, it is going to be a very big summer for movies. It really is. Alright, well, I want to thank Paul again for joining me in my review. We will be back he'll be back in a month for Project X.
Woot woot.
Woot woot. Alright, have a good night, guys, and take care.
See you.